Middleweight division is booked and busy the next few months. 2025 got a lot of middleweight fights going on. We just had Adesanya versus Imavov. Today, I'm going to be talking about the middleweight division, talking about why I believe it's in shambles and what we can do to fix the middleweight division, what we can do to set it up to be a nice streak of fights and a nice lineup to that championship bout. We got DDP versus Strickland this next weekend. It's going to be an interesting fight. Winner of that definitely going to be fed to the wolves, but there's a lot of contenders, a lot of people who are prospects who got shut down. Well, I'm going to be talking about all of it, but before we get into it, if you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and we'll get right into it. Starting off, we got Michel Pereira. Michael Pereira just fought against Anthony Hernandez, just lost. He got knocked out in the 5th round, gassed the fuck out. He's ranked number 15 right now, bottom of the middleweight division. We don't really know what to do with him. Obviously, there's some contenders at middleweight. There's some people that could come and fight Michel Pereira. You got Bo Nickel. You got, what's his name? Joe Pyfer. You got some middleweight prospects. There's some people that are on the come up that, Michel Pereira could fight down. I do believe he should fight down after losing to Hernandez. And it was a pretty bad loss, ground and pound knockout. I believe it was round 4, round 5. So, he didn't lose. He didn't lose in the best way. And Michel Pereira is also getting up there in age. So, is he going to be a gatekeeper, or is he going to be able to break really into the top 10? I don't think he's going to be able to break into the top 10, but Michel Pereira, he's a fun fighter, very fun fighter. He's flipping around, doing crazy shit. Like, he's definitely an entertainer. I don't see him as being a title contender at any point throughout his career, but he is a fun fighter. But I think he's going to need to fight down somebody down in the rankings and maybe a prospect on the come up. But we'll move on. We got Shara Bullet. Shara just fought this past weekend, lost to Michael Venom Page. Michael Venom Page moves up, beat Shara Magomedov, takes his 0, and decides to go back down to 170. So, I mean, Shara Magomedov is in an interesting place. Does he deserve to fight up? I don't know. When I made my recap video and shit, I was like, or yesterday when I made my video about or matchmaking everybody from UFC Fight Night Saudi Arabia. If you haven't seen that video, go check that video out. But I matched Magomedov with somebody higher ranked. I don't know if he really deserves that. I do think he's in a tough spot here because, Michael Venom Page just moved up, beat him, and just left the division. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know really what they're going to do with Shara, as well as the fact that he's stuck in Abu Dhabi. He's stuck in, that side of the world. He's stuck in that side of the world because most commissions won't allow him to fight due to the fact that he only has one eye. So him in the rankings makes things kind of difficult, and I don't know where they're going to place him. So this is another complicated aspect of middleweight, man. Like, what are we going to do with Shara? What are we going to do with Michael? Like, you could match those two up together as well. I feel like a lot of the guys in the bottom 15 should be matched up together, but we will move on to the next one. Jack fucking Hermanson. Where is this guy at? Where is this dude at? Comes out of nowhere, destroys a prospect in Joe Pyfer, wins the unanimous decision, gasses Joe Pyfer out, and disappears off the face of the earth. So, where is Jack Hermanson? He absolutely cooking the division right now. He's just sitting in the rankings at number 13. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know where he is. But, the Joker, he's definitely a gatekeeper, 100% gatekeeper, and I don't see him being anything more than a gatekeeper. But he's just chilling. He's just chilling here. Like, either the UFC needs to book him up against a contender, either needs to book him up against a top 10 guy and, push him, or they need to fucking book him up against a prospect on the come up to get Jack Hermanson out of the rankings, man. I don't think this dude should be in the rankings, but he's a huge gatekeeper, and it makes things complicated at middleweight, man. It makes things complicated at middleweight, but we'll move on to the next guy, Anthony Hernandez. Anthony Hernandez just beat Michel Pereira. He can be a true contender. I think he has a chance at being a contender. He's fighting Brendan Allen soon. In a few weeks, I believe he's fighting Brendan Allen. I think that's a very winnable fight for him. If Anthony Hernandez gets that win, if Fluffy gets that win, I do think he has a chance at breaking into the top 5. He is a well-rounded fighter, good on the ground, good on the feet. He knows how to dig deep. He did that against Michel Pereira, was able to, slug out some rounds and get to that 4th and 5th round where he was able to dominate in the championship rounds. So he has a chance at being a prospect. I think Anthony Hernandez is a bright light in middleweight. He's a guy that you can look to as potentially somebody who can actually make a flash, to get into the top 5, get top 10, top 5, and actually make a deal, make some damage in middleweight, do some damage in middleweight, man. But we'll move on to Paulo Costa, man, he's just holding up space. He's on like a 2-fight loss streak. Hasn't had a decent win since maybe 2020 or 2021. Hasn't had an amazing win. Paulo Costa, man, just keeps fighting top guys and keeps losing. He needs to fight down. This dude needs to fight an unranked guy. I seriously don't see Paulo Costa beating anybody in the top 10. I don't see him beating anybody in the top 10, let alone the top 15. He doesn't really have too many people that he can beat. In my video that I made yesterday, I booked him. I set up him and Sharamagomedov because both these guys are kind of in iffy spots. But I mean, honestly, an unranked guy unranked prospect should maybe fight Paulo Costa. I don't know. Give him Bo Nickel, give him some shit like that. But Paulo Costa holding up space at middleweight absolutely doesn't do shit. He's just losing nonstop. He needs to get back on with a nice win. He needs something. He needs to just get another little momentum boost, something to boost the confidence because Paulo Costa's just been getting fucked up recently. So this dude is kind of in an iffy spot at middleweight. But we're moving on to Roman Dolidze. Roman Dolidze, kind of a mid-range fighter, but I do think Roman Dolidze does have a potential at middleweight to do some good things. He's on a 2-fight win streak. Before that, I believe he was on a 2-fight loss streak, 2 or 3-fight loss streak. He was coming up as a contender at middleweight, then got shut down. Now he's back. He beat Smith. He beat Anthony Smith. I think he moved up to light heavyweight, beat Anthony Smith, and then came back and just beat Kevin Holland. Obviously, Kevin Holland isn't the best win. Let's be honest. Kevin Holland's kind of a troll win, but good win nonetheless. Good win nonetheless. And he's on a 2-fight win streak. So I think Roman Dolidze should fight up. He's fighting up. He's fighting Marvin Vettori. What am I saying? He is fighting Marvin Vettori. He's booked. The rematch is booked. I think he wins that fight. I think Roman Dolidze wins that fight. And I think we could see Roman Dolidze actually make a little mark at middleweight. I think he's a decent fighter, pretty good on the ground, decent on the feet. He's not a flashy knockout artist. He's not a great, amazing grappler either. He's just a mid-level kind of Georgian fighter. So I think Roman Dolidze is a decent fighter, man. I think he's decent, but we will move on to the next. Brendan Allen. He's fighting Fluffy Hernandez. I think he loses that fight. I think Brendan Allen has always been kind of a fluke. He's just been a guy who gets submission after submission, but lost his win streak, just lost to Nasruddin Imavov not that long ago in Paris. And he kind of got fraud checked. Like, I don't want to say he got fraud checked, but he kind of got fraud checked. I know Nasruddin Imavov is one of the best, in the middleweight division right now. Just knocked out Israel Adesanya, but at the same time, Brendan Allen doesn't really have a good place at middleweight. He's really mid-range as well because he just lost to Nasruddin Imavov. And if he loses to Fluffy Hernandez, his entire win streak is just completely useless. He's got no chance at fighting for the belt. I don't think he will ever get a chance to fight for the belt. Allen's a good wrestler and he's a good submission artist, but there's guys who are able to stuff his takedowns and able to piece him up on the feet and on the ground. I mean, he was just holding down Nasruddin Imavov in that fight. It was not a good fight. That was a shit fight. And Brendan Allen showed he's a pretty boring middleweight. So I just don't know where this dude plays. I think he should fight down the rankings. I think he's going to lose to Anthony Hernandez as well. I think Hernandez has got everything to beat Allen. He's going to be able to match his ground game, and he's such a better striker. I think Anthony's going to outstrike Brendan Allen by a long shot. So we'll see what happens. But Brendan Allen is another reason why this division is cooked, man. He's just such a weird, awkward fighter. And he shouldn't be even in the top 10. I don't think he should be a top 10 fighter. I think he should be low top 15, but we'll see what happens with him and Hernandez. We move on, though, to Jared Cannonier. Jared Cannonier as well, man. 42-year-old Jared Cannonier. He's fighting Rodriguez. And finally they got a guy outside the rankings breaking in, fighting number 8 Jared Cannonier. I think they want to get Jared Cannonier out of there. He's jacked for his age. He's in absolute amazing tip-top shape, but he's on a 2-fight loss streak. Lost to Imavov, just lost to Caio Borralho, and you can see he's slowly deteriorating. His age is catching up to him. 42 years old, fighting at middleweight. It's pretty rough. It's pretty difficult. You got up-and-coming contenders, at age 30, even younger, and they're just gonna be faster on the feet. They're gonna be faster overall. And Jared Cannonier won't be able to match up against most of these guys. We'll see how he does against Rodriguez. Cannonier's still dangerous. He's still got knockout power, but I do think Cannonier is nearing the end of his career, and he will be retiring soon. So, Cannonier, I do love Jared Cannonier, but I don't think he will be going on for much longer, man. We move on, though, to Marvin Vettori. Marvin fucking Vettori, what is this dude doing in the top 10 in 2025. What is he doing in the top 10 in 2025? What is he doing in the top 10 in 2025? I actually cannot, man. Marvin Vettori is literally the definition of a gatekeeper. This guy is just unanimous decision after unanimous decision. It's just nonstop gatekeeping, and he loses to most people. He loses to most people. Since he fought Roman Dolidze, he's only fought one time in between then. Where is he? He hasn't fought in a year and a half. Marvin Vettori hasn't fought in a year and a half, and he's coming back to fight Roman Dolidze for the second time, rematching him. I don't know what else to say, man. Marvin Vettori is holding up a beautiful number 7 spot in middleweight. He shouldn't be there. I think Roman Dolidze takes it from him. Second time around, I think he takes it from him. It's a 5-round fight. Marvin Vettori hasn't fought in basically 2 years. This dude's cardio shouldn't be as good as Roman Dolidze's. We'll see what happens, but I think Marvin Vettori needs to get the heck out of the top 10. He should not be in the top 10. He's got no chance of contending for the belt. He's got no chance of beating anybody for the title. I don't see him beating anybody in the top 10 right now. And that's all I really got to say, man. I'm sorry to hate on you, Marvin Vettori. Marvin Vettori's still a good fighter. Don't get me wrong, but he shouldn't be in the top 10. That's all. That's it. But we move on to Caio Borralho. Caio Borralho is undefeated at middleweight, undefeated in the UFC, and this dude deserves a higher shot. I think he will potentially be fighting Imavov or Hamzat or maybe Whitaker, something like that in the top 5 right now. I think Caio Borralho is a good contender. I think he will be contending for the belt in the next year or two. Honestly, I do see him getting that shot sooner than later. But they could book him against Imavov, and the winner of that will definitely get a title shot. We'll see what happens, but I think Caio Borralho is a nice shining light at middleweight. I think he's a fun fighter, part of the Fighting Nerds. The Fighting Nerds have a huge fan base, and they've got a huge group behind them. So it makes everything look good. And if Caio Borralho can get in that title contention and even potentially become the middleweight champ, it'll make the Fighting Nerds literally top tier. So we'll see what happens. I think Caio Borralho is a very good fighter, though, very well rounded, and I think he will be contending for the belt in the next year or two. We move on, though, to Robert Whitaker. Unfortunate, man. He got subbed by Chimaev. It was expected. Chimaev is the best of the best at middleweight. He's dominant, very, very dominant grappler, and Robert Whitaker wasn't really able to get anything going in that fight, and Robert Whitaker is coming to the end of his career as well. Obviously, he's still an amazing fighter, but there's a lot of guys that I see in the top 10, the top 5 beating Robert Whitaker. I don't think Robert Whitaker will be staying in the top 10 in 2025. I think he will be moving down, and I just don't know who he could really be fighting in the top 5 right now, or who he could be contending against to maybe get another title shot, but I don't see it happening, man. I love Robert Whitaker, great fighter. He's been a great middleweight, but I don't see him getting that belt back, and I don't see him fighting for that belt. So I think he will be matched up against a lower-ranked opponent, somebody maybe low top 10, maybe top 15, but I don't think top 15. Probably top 10, and I think he will be moving down in the rankings. If he does fight Caio Borralho, I think he loses that fight. If he fights Imavov, I think he loses that fight. Like all the guys in the top 5, I think he loses too. Maybe they could run the rematch, Izzy versus Whitaker, but I think Izzy and Whitaker wouldn't accept that rematch. I think they're buds now, they're friends, so it's nice to see. But I think both Izzy and Whitaker are on the downfall. It is the end of an era, so we'll move on though. It sucks to see. We got Israel Adesanya. He will be getting re-ranked down. He will be moving down because Imavov just knocked him out, and it's rough to see. Imavov is a good fighter, but Adesanya's chin is just kind of cooked, man. He's lost 4 out of his 5 last fights. He beat Pereira, and he's lost to everybody else. Lost to Pereira the first time, then beat Pereira. Then he lost to Strickland, then lost to DDP, then lost to Imavov. Sorry, I just completely messed that up. But you get the point. He's lost almost all of his past fights, in the last couple of years. It's been pretty rough. It's a downfall of Izzy, downfall of an era. And I think if they're going to do something, I think they should match up Israel Adesanya against somebody lower in the rankings, somebody who is actually a winnable fight, or maybe a rematch with Whitaker or a rematch with Costa, something that, gives those guys who are on losing streaks, give those guys that are like nearing the end of their career a chance to get another win rather than fighting a contender. Because if Izzy fights Caio Borralho or fights somebody that's on the come up, I just don't think he wins, and I think his chin's been cooked a bit too hard. It's what happens, This is why Khabib got out at the right time. This is why GSP got out at the right time. These fighters are getting out at the right time to not get on that losing streak and not start to lose their momentum, because after a certain point, it's not even that they lose their legacy or they lose their pride. It's just a matter of age and a matter of, losing their experience. All the experience that they've had, it slowly drifts away, and it comes into a new era of guys who are fresh, who are more consistent, who are training harder, who are doing more work, and who are just on the come up. So it's a matter of that, and I just think Izzy is near the end of his career. But nonetheless, I think we got to have one more Israel Adesanya fight, maybe versus Whitaker or Costa. That's what I think. But we will move on to Hamzat Boris Chimaev. Chimaev is a good light in middleweight. He's a good guy in middleweight, and he's dominant. He's very dominant. He's going to be fighting for the belt next. He's either going to be fighting for the belt next, or he's going to be fighting somebody to get that number one contender spot for the belt. He'll either be fighting Strickland or DDP. We'll see what happens. But I think Hamzat Chimaev will be the champion by the end of 2025. His wrestling is just better than everybody's. It's just better than everybody's. And at middleweight, I don't know anybody that can stop him. I don't think anybody will be beating Hamzat Chimaev anytime soon. And I think he will be the champion by the end of 2025. That's just really all there is to say. He is that guy at middleweight right now, and I think he will be a dominant force. He is the prime light at middleweight. He's a prime, flash at middleweight that makes the division so much fun. He was in welterweight, moved up. I like the move up. He looks great at middleweight. He doesn't have to cut as much weight, and he's powerful, he's dominant, and he's still got that speed that he's always had. But we move on to Nasruddin Imavov. Imavov, another great light at middleweight, man. He is another guy on the come up. He's going to be ranked number 2 soon. I do believe he will be contending for the belt, hopefully in the next year or two. I think he deserves it more than Hamzat, to be honest. He's beat more top 10, beat more top 5, but at the same time, Dana's already promised to Hamzat he's getting that shot, so we will see what happens. But I think Imavov is a great fighter. Just knocked out Israel Adesanya. Very nice work, and you can't really complain against Nasruddin Imavov. He's humble. He's a good fighter. He's got good striking. He's got decent wrestling. And I think he will have a solid chance to get that belt. We'll see what happens, though. I think Imavov will have a good 2025 for sure. And then we got Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland, man, I think he loses to DDP, and then I think he loses his next fight. I think Sean Strickland is nearing a downfall here. I think he's going to start getting destroyed by contenders. He's top 1. He's number 1 contender right now, and I think he's going to slowly start to get chipped away and get dropped down to the top 10. I think this is the end of Sean Strickland's career. I don't think he's going to be getting that belt against DDP. It's possible. Don't get me wrong. It's possible, but Sean Strickland loses to most of these contenders. Even if he rematches Imavov, I think Imavov's leveled up. I think Imavov beats Strickland. Hamzat mauls Strickland. Caio Borralho beats Strickland. Like, all these guys, those 3 guys right there, those 3 contenders, all beat Sean Strickland. I think if anything, maybe Sean Strickland will rematch Izzy. Maybe, or maybe he fights Whitaker, but he said he doesn't want to fight Whitaker before. I don't know why. I don't know if he's scared or he thinks it's a useless fight, but we'll see what happens. If he loses, though, I think he is going to have a huge decline. If Sean Strickland loses to DDP, I think he will have a huge decline. And even if he wins that belt, I think he will get mauled by Hamzat and then start to get chipped away by up-and-coming contenders. So I think Sean Strickland is nearing the end of his reign in the top 5. But we will move on to the champion, Dricus Du Plessis. Dricus Du Plessis, fun champion. I love Dricus Du Plessis. He's got a funny sense of humor, and he's honestly a great champ. He's a great champ. He's got a good sense of humor. He's funny. He's got a good personality. He's a fun fighter. Very awkward style. People are always like, "What the fuck is Dricus doing?" But it's just a style that works. It's the tism, man. It works for him. But I don't think he will be champ by the end of 2025. He's either going to lose to Whitaker, Imavov, or Caio Borralho. Like I've been saying, man, those are the 3 guys that are on the come up in middleweight, and I think they will be at the top for a while, for at least a few years. I think they will be at the top. Dricus Du Plessis will get lowered down a bit as well, but I still think he's a guy that can beat some of those dudes. I think he could beat Caio Borralho or Nasruddin Imavov. I think those are winnable fights for him, but I don't think he will beat Hamzat. I think Hamzat will out-wrestle him and get the submission. But nonetheless, boys, that's the entire video. If you did enjoy, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, drop your comments down below what you guys think about the middleweight division. I think the middleweight division isn't cooked, but is definitely in an awkward position right now. There's a lot of top guys that could be fighting for the belt soon, and there's a lot of dudes in the top 15 that are just in an awkward place or just shouldn't be there. They're either inactive or they've got bad wins or they're on losing streaks. Like there's a lot of dudes below the top five. Everybody below the top five that has been struggling recently. There's not many people on the come up besides Anthony Hernandez, really. So, we're going to see what happens with middleweight, but we got a lot of middleweight fights coming up soon. I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited. But without further ado, I will catch you boys in the next one. See you.